Steph Curry is the face of the franchise, and that helps me out because I don't have to. I don't want to have to be the leader. I'm not a leader. I'm bad at saying, stand behind me and follow me.
So you guys always talk about that championship stuff. I try to tell y'all, all these bus riders, they don't mean nothing to me. If you ain't driving the bus, don't walk around talking about you're a champion.
Who's the leader out there right now?
The coach is the leader.
39-22 advantage on the glass for the Wolves. Edwards. Cash! Oh, it's on, ladies and gentlemen.
Oh, Edwards! A signature slam!
When it comes to Kevin Durant's career, many thought this guy had the potential to be a top 10 player ever and possibly push top 5. As basketball talent and his overall skill is simply undeniable. But his career path, the choices he's made, I'd say have been lackluster and subpar at every single turn. As KD himself joined the Warriors that had won 73 games, had 4 Hall of Famers. He's the one who went to Brooklyn with Kyrie, he picked out Steve Nash as the coach, co-signed all the role players, the entire roster, was playing pseudo GM, and then midway through the year, flipped those pieces for James Harden, his buddy and longtime friend.
I've made a huge mistake.
And ones that eventually failed, in large part due to Kevin Durant, his play and choices, what did he do? Demanded a trade. And of all places to go, Kevin Durant, Phoenix was a destination. This Suns team at the time, coming off a season where they had won 64 games and the previous year had made the NBA Finals. KD going to Phoenix was the ultimate bailout and get out of jail free card. But again, what happens? Flames out in the playoffs, then overreacts and panics and pushes for the team to trade for Bradley Beal.
I made a huge, tiny mistake.
And then, like clockwork, what happens? The big three of KD, Booker, and Beal, they're injured, hurt, banged up, and barely can hold on to the 6th seed in the Western Conference. And of course, in round 1, get swept in embarrassing fashion. The only person Durant can blame is himself. And already in the aftermath of being swept, what are we hearing reports of? Well, KD was unhappy with the coaching, the offensive schemes. It was too pick and roll heavy. Hate to break it to you, Kevin, but pick and rolls weren't your problem. Your problem was you gutted all your depth, all your supporting cast pieces for Bradley Beal, one of the most overrated, overhyped players of all time, whose contract is simply ludicrous. And even before Game 4 being swept, when asked who was the leader of the team, how did KD respond?
Who's the leader out there right now?
The coach is the leader.
That right there is my biggest problem with Kevin Durant. On one hand, he's not a leader, doesn't want that burden, but on the other hand, wants the praise and the accolades, the adulation that comes along with being a leader. I mean, at this point, you gotta pick a lane. Are you or are you not? And from my view, you 100% aren't a good leader. And staying on the topic of leadership, when it comes to the pro-KD media, specifically JJ Redick, they'll make every excuse, every caveat, every minor asterisk to help Kevin Durant, his legacy, and his overall standing in the NBA. And I'm kinda intrigued, what's their excuse now? KD yet again swept in embarrassing fashion, and a Big 3 super team again has flamed out. I mean, what are the excuses now? Because in the past, we've heard all of them.
All this time with all the bullshit discourse and not just appreciate literally one of the greatest basketball players to ever play this game.
Yeah.
I really
right after he chose to go to the Warriors, and I was a fan of that move. And I was on the Clippers and had to go compete against the Warriors. I knew our championship window was closed the second he signed that contract, but I was still a fan of the move. They were a James Harden injury, a Kyrie injury, and a toenail away from probably winning the 21 NBA Finals.
The lengths people will go to absolve Kevin Durant of any responsibility is pretty astounding. And now in 2024, 3 years removed from the shot versus the Bucks, I don't want to hear about his shoe size, that one game, that one season. That's over and done with. This dude's played 17 years in the NBA, 14 of which weren't in Golden State. In those 14 years, what's happened outside the Golden State ecosystem? 14 years out of Golden State, Kevin Durant has a whopping one finals victory. I repeat, one finals victory. 3 years in Golden State, 3 straight finals, and back-to-back championships. I mean, look at that objectively. KD without Golden State, he's basically T-Mac 2.0 or someone like George Gervin. A great scorer, great talent, tremendous skill, who team-wise, winning-wise, is kind of questionable, kind of up in the air. And possibly the worst thing about the whole Golden State KD era is the Golden State before KD in 2015, they already won a championship. And of course, 2022 also won a championship without Kevin Durant's services. Now, once again looking at KD outside of Golden State, what do all of his teams in the past 5 years have in common? Big 3 offensive superstars, really no depth, and no defense. And this series versus Minnesota, one of the best defensive teams in the league. The overall notion offense wins championships, it was thoroughly exposed. As Ant Edwards this series, he ran roughshod on his longtime idol, averaging 31 points per game, 8 boards, 6 dimes, on 51-43, and 84 splits. If you can't see the common through line in Kevin Durant's teams, how he builds those teams, constructs them, I mean, you're simply lost at this point. And I think KD's overall problem is the fundamental belief offense does indeed win championships. As again, when he was in Golden State, offensively yes, they were a great team. But what separated them from all the other teams? It was being a top 2, top 3, even the best defense in the world. Long story short, a great big 3, a great offensive big 3, is nothing without defense. And I'll give KD credit for one thing. I think his Suns teams, his Brooklyn teams, in a way ended the big 3 era of super teams. As those teams failing so bad, falling flat on their face time after time, it kind of showed GMs, you know, putting 3 really great players, making $50+ million together, doesn't guarantee you anything. You can't ignore defense, rim protection, and the glue guys who come playoff time are so vital. No offense to Nurkic, Royce O'Neal, a Drew Eubanks, guys like that. But come playoff time, if that's your 4, 5, and 6, I mean, your team's essentially cooked. And the last thing I will say about Kevin Durant, like I've said time and time again, a great offensive talent, one of the best players of all time. In my book, he's still, I would say, top 15. When you look back on his career, it leaves so much to be desired. This guy could have been one of the top 7, top 5 guys of all time if he just stayed the path, didn't go to Golden State, leave to Brooklyn, and then jump ship to Phoenix of all places. And it's not just the losing outside of Golden State, it's really how he's lost. His last playoff series in Oklahoma City, what happened? Lost a Game 7, blowing a 3-1 lead. Embarrassing. His last series in Brooklyn, swept 4-0 by Boston. And last night getting beat 4-0 by Minnesota, possibly his last series with the Phoenix Suns. If Durant goes out like this, being a frontrunner for 2 championships, failing everywhere else, his overall legacy in 20-30 years' time will get 0 respect. And if by some miracle this guy actually requested a trade out of Phoenix, I mean the respect meter is already at 0, but if he does that, it'd be like -500. So that right there is the end of the video. As always, thank you guys for watching, hope you enjoyed it. I'll see you next time.